Alright, so hopefully people have been paying attention to the news over the last couple days. There were huge tornadoes in the Midwest. The single deadliest tornado since like 1950. The one that affected Joplin, Missouri. And when discussing the federal government's response, Eric Cantor said that, any additional federal emergency response funds would probably have to be paired with a budget offset. That he's worried about, what spending those funds would do to the budget deficit. And I think there can only be one logical response, and that's fuck you. For somebody who belongs to a political party that didn't feel the need to offset Bush tax cuts that went unpaid for, Iraq and Afghanistan wars that weren't even on the budget. I mean, these were like war appropriations bills that weren't even built into the budget, which I think is a great point to bring up whenever anybody points out that Democrats failed to pass budgets over the last couple of years. But this idea that he's going to turn giving people who have lost everything, including a bunch of them family members. I mean, over 100 people dead, a bunch of people still missing. These families, some families and neighborhoods and whole towns have lost everything they have. Everything. Houses, cars, schools, office buildings, gone. I mean, the aerial footage from Joplin, Missouri was shocking. These places have lost everything. And instead of saying, we're going to get you whatever you need, whatever it is that you need to rebuild, to search and rescue, to get essential services back up and running, to get you back on your feet as soon as possible, we're going to give you everything. We're not going to write you a blank check, but we're going to, listen to what you need, and we're going to get you what you need in a reasonable and sensible manner. And we'll deal with the budget later. We're not talking about emergency funds for, some other country. This is Missouri, the Midwest, part of this country. And sometimes I wonder if representatives sometimes think, like, I'm only looking out for my district instead of the country as the whole. Like, yes, I understand you're elected by that district, but you're elected by citizens of the United States, and you're representing the United States. You're representing your district as part of the United States. And I think there's just a sense of, common fucking sense that when places have been devastated with this kind of, natural disaster, that they do whatever they can to help. And so, this is not sort of like a one-off event either. We've got a Republican Party now that is so focused on ideology, they can't see the common sense solutions or the common sense way of dealing with things. And the common sense solution with, hundreds of people dead, towns wiped out, and a bunch of people homeless is that you send them whatever the fuck they need. And so I called his office and I said, I'm not a constituent, but this is appalling. This is beyond ridiculous that, he's trying to play budget hawk with emergency funds for people who have lost everything. And, it was clear that his office was being inundated because I was on hold for 5 minutes. But it's beyond ridiculous. If there was a great article they were talking about, and I'll post a link to it, 5 ways Eric Cantor could pay for, the emergency funds for the storm victims. And, it was like, get rid of oil subsidies, eliminate the Bush, rescind the Bush tax cuts. There are all these things that make common sense solutions to reducing the deficit, but they don't take those because of political ideology. And it's like the information came out, a study, or maybe it was even government data, that unplanned pregnancies cost the United States government through Medicaid and Medicare, I think it's $11 billion a year, which really just makes the point that Planned Parenthood should get more federal funding, not less. But it's beyond ridiculous. And so, we've got to, I am all about there being a difference in political ideology, but when United States citizens and towns are, you know, in this kind of emergency situation, you give them what they need. We'll deal about the budget later. And like I said, you know, we're not sending them gold-plated, you know, porta potties and stuff, but get them what they need. And so to even make a political issue out of it just pissed me off. You know, it's like there's no sacred ground left. There's no space for common sense positions. I mean, who would think to hold up emergency funds for U.S. cities and towns and people because of political ideology? I mean, if you clearly not interested in, you know, balancing the budget or getting rid of the deficit, if you're extending Bush tax cuts and, you know, as a party you're, you know, for keeping oil subsidies for, you know, the most profitable industry on the face of the planet throughout history. So, pissed me off. I'm pissed off. I'll be pissed off. And the other thing that pissed me off was the Republicans in the House who Elizabeth Warren came to testify, and they repeatedly got facts wrong about, you know, they were talking about the Financial Consumer Protection Agency, and they were like, this is an unprecedented bureaucracy with, you know, crazy terms that, you know, terms of appointment that no other government agency has. And Elizabeth Warren was like, no, actually, you know, this, and this agency, the chiefs just got, you know, came out of similar 5-year terms, and just was like, you know, setting the record straight when they were getting the facts wrong. And one of the representatives, Elizabeth Warren, had agreed to come and stay for a certain amount of time, but she had another meeting that she had scheduled. She had actually rearranged her schedule for, you know, go and testify, go and speak before these representatives. And basically the representative said, we never agreed to get you out of here at 2:15. I was never agreed to. And she says, yes, sir, it was. And then he basically called her a liar. He was like, you're making this up. And then one of the Democrats sitting on the panel was like, I'm trying to be cordial about this, but you just called the gentlewoman a liar, and maybe you should check it with your staff. And then, of course, he was like, well, I have checked with my staff. And so afterwards, of course, it comes out his staff had agreed to have her out by 2:15, like she had said, but he didn't feel the need to apologize, which is not just, you know, outside of, you know, anything, you know, you being a political asshole. It's just common sense. Like, if you're wrong on something and you call somebody else a liar and it turns out you were wrong, you apologize. It's like manners go out the window when you get elected to public office. So it's common sense. But that's it for now. Little rant.